Friends, how are you? Welcome to Changing Tracks. How are we doing? Today we have with us Casandra, a new passenger. Casandra, how are you doing?
Hi Christina, I'm really glad to be here.
Casandra, would you please present yourself?
I'm 30 years old this year. I love being outdoors, I love the sports, and I've been working for the church in Singapore for 3 years. In my own youth group, I've been serving for about eight years as a youth leader.
Could you tell us about your family? Are they Catholic, or did you discover the faith at a later stage in life?
I grew up in a non-Catholic family. My parents are not of the faith, but I was always in a Catholic school for 10 years, so that exposed me to the faith. So even though I was not Catholic, I always knew that there was a God in the world. And it's only after I graduated from high school, which is grade 10 I think, grade 10, that I began to have some time to learn more about God. So my godmother, who was my aunt, asked me if I wanted to find out more about the faith. And I said, okay, why not, since I had a few months. So I went to find out more about the faith through this class in the parish, which was called the RCIY. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's similar to the RCIA. This one's for the youth. So I went through the classes and I realized that there was this restlessness in me. Like, I think even before I went for the classes, I was not living a very good life. Like in school, I was always quarreling with my parents. I mean, and they gave me everything that they could have. My dad was working, and he was a director of some company, and my mom was working as well. So I always hung out with bad company, and it was horrid. Like, when I came home from school, I always quarreled with them, and I didn't like. There was a lot of tension at home, and I didn't stay home much.
There are a lot of young people right now that seem sad. They're rebellious about everything. Did you at any moment experience that sadness, that rebelliousness? Did you understand why you felt that way?
Yeah. So despite having everything that I had from my parents, I realized that I was searching for truth in my life. Like at one point, I felt that like my dad, he was actually very well off and everything, but once he started to gamble, and he lost more than he won, and actually it started to take its toll on the family. And I remember at a point I was really struggling because the family was not doing well. My mother was not working, and I had to take on a couple of jobs, and I was quite angry with God, even though I knew that like I was quite angry with God, and so I was really looking for the answers. And I remembered I had to go for a camp. It was a December camp then. And I went for camp, and one of the night sessions really spoke to me. It was a night reflection session where they would have all the music and the lights and everything. So it was really great atmosphere to reflect and see where God was leading you. And I remembered the words that spoke out to me was, "You were never there for me," and everything. And I felt that at that point my idea of God was always that, like, He was never there for me, and I was always like left alone, or that was what I thought at a point, you know. I was always struggling for myself. I was always like had to fend for myself and everything. And I remember at the end of the camp, I was asking my facilitator, hey, like, so after this camp, like, if I go back into real life, would anything change? And he said no. Like it's all going to be the same, but you know what, you're going to have the strength to rise up to what life has to throw to you, because you have Jesus. And I'm like, so what's the point of believing in God then? You know? So I left the camp and I went back into real life, and at that point we were going through the process, and I was pretty indifferent, but I got baptized anyway. So I got baptized. It was only at the way leading up to confirmation where we actually had to go through confirmation. I remember I had 4 really good leaders, and they made us understand why, how much God loved us so much, and I remembered my faith was really growing then, and it was through I remember we had to go out to evangelize to some people at the beach. So we went out, and being young and everything, it was good to just break out of your own like self-conceived ideas, and just to go out and try to speak to someone at the beach about Jesus, because you know it's a bit easier at the beach because the people there are more relaxed. It's on a Saturday, and so we went and we spoke to 3 people at the beach, and most of them are pretty receptive to what we had to say. And I realized that it's all about just taking the first step, and Jesus will just give you the words to say to the people. So after confirmation, we started a youth group. Like we wanted to serve the ministry through praise and worship, so we started a small youth band and everything. And I felt my faith was really growing then with the group. But after a while, like most of the leaders left, and the band just disbanded, and I also felt that Jesus was just not us. Like I didn't feel that I had the charism to journey with young people then. So I left the ministry, and I think when I left, I just left like that. And after a while, I just stopped going to church. I was a like Sunday Catholic, and then after that, I was like a non-Catholic for about 1.5 years or so. And during that time, I just felt a huge sense of restlessness. Like I remember there was one time I was lying in bed, and it was Sunday, and I knew that I had to go for mass, but I was just too lazy. So I was just like just being so caught up in my own struggles and my own pain and my own hurts and everything. But I remember one time my friend who was serving in another worship team, he was like, say, hey, why don't you just come and check out my youth ministry and see if God is asking you to serve there. And I was like, okay, let's go and check it out. So he invited me to come down, and the youth group had prayer meetings on Friday nights. So I went down, and it was like really charismatic and all. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not a charismatic kind of person, you know. Like, but I went anyway, and I was like telling God, okay, I'm gonna just be there and just audition for the youth band. Like, what kind of band had an audition? But I was like, okay, God, if I pass, then I'll join. But if not, then I'll just leave it as that. But like, horrors of horrors was that I actually passed, and I went into the worship team. So I was serving there for about 8 years. I encountered God primarily through the praise and worship songs and everything. But I felt that at a point my faith was entirely based on my feelings, and it was not rooted in the truths of the church, which is on the sacraments, on the prayer, on developing a relationship with God, on having a good prayer life, and with such a shaky foundation, it was bound to fail, which it did. And I mean, not that it failed, but it was just too weak to really grow into something stronger.
Okay, let's backtrack a little. You said that you had been to a camp, but you weren't practicing. What actually motivated you to go to the camp?
I was in pain, and I was looking for answers to my pain, and I wanted God to speak to me. But so in the camp, I got a first taste of God's love.
So the camp did help you to get closer to God, even to the point where you said that you were going to get baptized. But what was it that made you want to be baptized?
The camp awakened a desire in me to know more about this God whom I've heard so much about. And as much as I was not sure if I wanted to get baptized, but I just went ahead with baptism. And yeah, I mean, I've always been pretty lukewarm my whole life, and I think that I was just going along with the flow always. But God made use of my lukewarmness even so then to speak to me at every point.
Did you notice any change or any difference after your baptism?
I remember before we were baptized, our monitors or facilitators would tell us, once you're baptized, all your sins will be washed away and everything. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And it's like I'm going to be as new as a baby and as clean as wool. And I remember feeling really happy after I got baptized. But then again, shortly after baptism, we're all humans and we fall into the same sins again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was horrid.
Did your family react well to this? I mean, you were the only Catholic. Did everything go normal? Was everything going fine?
No, it was normal because my parents were pretty permissive in the sense that they let me do whatever I wanted. So when I had to get baptized, I had to ask permission from my dad because I was still under 21 at the time. So I spoke to my dad and he was like, go speak to your aunt. If she says it's okay, and as long as you're not killing someone, smoking or doing drugs, we're cool letting you get baptized. So it was not a big issue at all. Yeah.
Do you have any sisters?
I have one younger sister, yeah.
And did your conversion have any effect on your sister?
Yeah, my conversion, actually, she was pretty intrigued on why I chose to get baptized. So after I got baptized, she decided to go through the process as well. So she went through the process and she got baptized. But I guess she didn't have a deep enough encounter with God, and then after that she just became a Sunday Catholic, and right now I'm still praying for her.
You mentioned that at one stage you were lukewarm and that you stopped going to Mass. What made you change?
I think despite having many ups and downs in the faith life, in the spiritual life, I always knew that there was a God somewhere, but it was only after a certain point where I felt that I had everything I wanted. I had a good job. I had friends who loved me, family friends and families who loved me, but yet there was something still missing. I remember at this point of time I was asking God, like, you know, all my friends are getting married and everything, but have you forgotten about me, God? and it was at a point where I started to go for more frequent adoration in adoration chapel. There were a lot of adoration chapels in Singapore, you know, so not a week could pass without me going to adoration, and from there I began to seek the Lord and speak to Him in prayer. Prayer was not just like a dry, boring kind of prayer, but I felt that as I spoke to God, and He responded, and slowly He began to open my heart to the things of the Spirit and not the things of the world. And from there I began to have a new desire for things of what God wanted me to do with my life. And I think that really sparked something in me, even though it was not an outwardly huge sign or anything, but I believe that He gave me the grace to recognize that what I was searching for was really for Him. You know, all my life as I grew up and I went through school and everything, like, despite having everything that I could have in the world, but nothing else really satisfied my heart and my desire for God. And I knew that He put that desire in me, you know, to continue to search for Him, and it's a grace to actually recognize that. And I think that many young people are searching for that as well, for love, and to be able to recognize that that desire in us is not something that we can replace with material things and possessions, not even houses or cars or fanciful whatever not. It's really like only God could satisfy the hole that He has placed in our heart, because He has made us for Himself, you know. And I think that once every young person starts to recognize that, and they would know how much God loves them and has chosen them to be in this world. And I think that it's like every young person must ask themselves, like, what is God? It's not do I have a vocation or not, but like truly what is God asking me to do? Because you know, we're given one life, and we have to really make the best out of it. And all of us have our gifts and our talents, and we just have to find what they are through, and how do you find out what your gifts and talents are, and who God has created you to be. It's really through knowing yourself, and also through spending time in prayer and letting God reveal yourself, as reveal Himself to you.
You mentioned that before your faith was very much based on your feelings and not on the sacraments where it should be based. Could you explain to us, just for the young people that are watching, how they could sidetrack from the path if they only base their faith on their feelings and not on the sacraments? And how important the sacraments have been in your life?
I didn't know how much I was missing until I realized that the Church has given us everything that we needed through the sacraments, and especially through the Eucharist, and that through the Eucharist God has withheld nothing from us. And I realized that the more I frequented the sacraments, the more graces He was pouring out to me. It was not like it was like, okay, if I've nothing better to do, I decided to just go for mass more. So I just went for like more masses during the week, and then I realized I was very inspired by Pope John Paul II. I was reading a book, and he was saying that, you know, he went for frequent confession, and I decided to go for confession more frequently. And I realized that when I went for confession more frequently, it helped me be more sensitive to the movements of God in my soul. And so I really think it was a grace that just God made me realize that it's through the sacraments that He has given us everything that we needed to come close to Him, and then He has, yeah, through the Eucharist especially, He has given us everything in His Son, His body, blood, and His soul.
If I'm not wrong, in Singapore, the Catholics are a minority. Did you, at any point, think that this was not the true faith?
I think there are certain points where I really doubted if there was the true faith, but I never lost sight of the fact that Jesus was always there in the Blessed Sacrament. It's like, I'm not sure where I got that conviction from, but I always knew that He was always there, and even though I was not very faithful to Him and not living out my life as a Christian, but I never lost hope in Christ. Yeah.
What would you say to the young people that are losing their faith and live in lukewarmness and want to rekindle their faith or work out their faith? What would you say to them?
Don't be afraid to fail and let God help you, because in realizing our own weaknesses and our own powerlessness, like, can we truly say that God is giving us, and He wants to be our strength. He wants to help us every step of the way. You know, it's realizing that we can do nothing without Him. Truly, like He's the one that's gonna lead us through our darkness, and it's a process. You know, I find that many young people are pretty impatient and they just want to be saints overnight, but sometimes it's also about learning to be patient with yourselves and let God lead the way, you know. So just keep on trying and never lose hope that one day you'll be a saint.
Before you started to speak about your apostolate, would you explain what type of activity or apostolate you do? And what advice would you give to young people? For example, if you belong to a certain group, or if you have a certain reference, could you share that with us?
I think it's important for young people to be in a community. I think many of young people are just out there, and the sad thing is that everyone is, they're all alone and they're struggling and they're not being able to find God. Why? Because they're not in a community and they're all alone in their faith life, which is really sad because God has not created us to be alone. He has created us to be in community. And I think every young person needs to realize that, because once they are in community, then the love of God is transmitted from one person to the other. And if you're not coming to church and you're not in community, then how can God tell you He loves you? I mean, there's many other ways, but one of the key reasons is to be in community. And I think, not sure if I'm understanding you correctly, but right now I'm not really serving in any ministry, because I work for the Church of Singapore, and I feel that God has given me a vocation there. It's like my work is not really my work, it's like a vocation, and I love my work, so to speak. And I feel that what more people could do, more young people and young adults in general could do, is to not be afraid to share the gospel more with their friends, because I feel that as Catholics we tend to shy away from speaking the word a lot. You know, if I compare the Christians in Singapore and the Catholics in Singapore, we have so much more to learn from the our Christian brothers and sisters, because they're not afraid to speak about their faith at all and what Jesus has done for them. But come on, man, Catholics, we are the true church, and we have everything that we have the sacraments, we have Our Lady, and there's just so much beauty and history in the church, and we should not be afraid to speak about it, because yeah, it's like, and it's like God is speaking to us every day. It's not just when you go for a camp or a retreat or something, you know. And I think that more people should share from what God has done for them right now. And if you're praying every day, you have a sense of what God is doing in your life and in your struggles and everything. So I mean, the beauty of the gospel is always that it's always ever new, and it's like there's always something to share about God. And so, and I think that we just have to just step out in faith and not be afraid, like what Amelia and I did, and we got Shushu to come. So that's really awesome.
Casandra, thank you very much for your testimony. I really like the part about your restlessness, because it's true that there is a restlessness about finding God, and also on God's part to be able to be in our hearts, that searching, that longing, God's longing.
Thank you, Christina, for inviting me here, and I'm glad to be here, and I hope that more young people will start to open their hearts to God and to find out what God is, like what God wants them to do in their lives.
Casandra, thank you. Thank you for making it clear to us, because sometimes we make such a big mess in our head. But thank you. Friends, how important the sacraments are, how important it is to leave aside our lukewarmness, and how important it is to have that encounter with God. How important it is that He penetrates in our hearts and we allow Him to stay there. And there we have Him, and there we explore. And we find ourselves with the Lord and we embrace Him. Thank you. Thank you for being there.